Sorry everybody, we're back and we're about halfway through. No, we're getting to the good part, at least, of the buyer consultation. So right now we're just talking to them about the home buying process. So everybody, you've been warned, now you're being recorded. Okay, so the home buying process. So first up, we'll get you all pre-approved, which sounds like your husband's company has already done that for you guys, right?
Yep.
What was the amount that you guys are approved for?
We're approved up to 450.
Awesome, that's great. And do you know what type of loan you're getting by chance?
I don't. My husband's really the one whose specialties that department.
Okay, yeah, no worries, no worries. And did you send me your pre-approval letter yet or no?
I didn't.
Okay, no worries. Do you have a copy of that or no?
I can get a copy. Yes.
Okay, no worries. If we'll just get it after the meeting and then I can look at the type of loan. I'm assuming with everything you've told me, it's probably a conventional loan, so we'll kind of just focus on that. And then are you guys doing a down payment?
Yes, we have.
Okay.
Right now we have about 20,000 already saved up for a down payment. I don't think we need any more, but we can get some if we need to.
Okay. Just through a gift or?
Just through probably one of my next commission checks.
Okay. So let me see here. Okay. So if you were doing a 5% down, you would need 22,000, but I'm guessing you're probably doing a 3% down conventional loan since you're a first-time home buyer, and I know you guys have really good credit. So yeah, that's about 13,500 for your down payment. And then you have your closing costs on top of that. So yeah, about 20,000 should be a good amount for you guys.
Okay.
So yeah, we've got you all pre-approved. So yeah, first thing we'll need is just when we hang up, we'll have you send me over that pre-approval letter just so I have it for my file. So then if we find something really fast, I've already got it ready to go. And then we'll select and view properties. So that's the fun part that we'll do at the end of going through everything today. After we find some properties and we find something you like, that's when I will negotiate the terms and get the contract accepted. So this third item right here.
Okay.
Now, right now in this market, even in that price point, that's going to be one of our biggest challenges is just getting the contract accepted. As I had mentioned before, I do sell a lot of real estate and I have a lot of experience and it's still challenging for me. I mean, around this time last year, almost anybody I'd put an offer in for, the first one would get accepted as long as, you and the seller were on the same page. Now it's kind of gotten to the point where it's like my buyer will literally do everything that I tell them to and put in the best offer they possibly can, and they may not get it. So I just want to kind of prepare you that when we find a house, it's great to get excited, but try not to get too emotionally attached until I give you that call and say, we're under contract. And like I said, that is one of the biggest challenges. And we're going to kind of talk through some different strategies about what we do to help you get that first home that you really like. So once the contract is accepted, then we will finalize your mortgage financing. So there's going to just be some additional documents that the lender collects. Keep in mind, like once we start down this road, anytime the lender reaches out to you, you want to try to get them documentation back as soon as possible.
Okay.
Just because if we're delayed a couple of days, it can actually delay our whole transaction. Stuff that I send you is usually going to be pretty time sensitive too, but there are a couple of things I'll send you along the way that I'll say, and I'll kind of tease you. I'll say, actually read this before you sign it. So if it takes you a couple of days, that's fine. But yeah, for the most part, as we're sending you documents, you'll want to try to get those signed as soon as possible.
Okay.
From there, you'll conduct your home inspection, which is basically from the roof down to the foundation and everything in between. Kind of just lets you know if there's any issues with the home, and we'll go over costs on that too in just a minute. After the home inspection is done, if there's any repairs we need to talk to the sellers about, we'll negotiate those at that point. Keep in mind when we're doing the home inspection, it's a little different than when you're going to do when you're going into your apartment. Broken blinds or a missing light socket plate, stuff like that, we're not going to really bring up. We're going to be looking for the big ticket items, things that are expensive to fix, like issues with the roof, issues with the HVAC system or the sewer line, things like that.
Okay.
After the home inspection, the lender will order an appraisal, which is basically an opinion of value that lets the lender actually loan on the property. Before that point, I'll actually have sent you some comparable sales before we make an offer. So you'll have a pretty good idea of what the value is going to be in at, if we're high, if we're low, if we should be right on. But that appraisal it's something that the lender requires to be able to give you the money for the house.
Okay.
After the appraisal is completed, you'll go through final underwriting and loan approval. Usually, so I mean, you guys, I know that the lender has already collected a ton of documents. Each time that they ask for more stuff, it usually gets smaller. So this last one is usually like your updated pay stubs, maybe they're verifying employment, things like that.
Okay.
After that, you'll get the closing documents and gather your money for closing. And then you'll go in and sign all the paperwork. And so usually, like I said, from the time that we find a house and you're under contract until I'm handing you keys is usually about 30 days or so.
Okay.
Okay, any questions on any of that?
I don't think so. Not yet. You've done a pretty good job explaining so far.
Okay, anybody else have any questions they want to pipe in and ask?
Good.
Okay, I can't see all of you, so just yell if you need something. So next up, Hannah, we've got how we're making an offer. This is kind of the point that I like to tell you a little bit about my negotiating style. I'm a big believer in win-win or no deal. So for me, there's a lot of communication that goes into before we write the offer. And 90% of the time, I'm going to come to you and I'm going to say, here is the offer that the sellers are looking for. Do you want to do it? And if you go, yeah, that looks great, then I go, perfect. I go write it up. We go through it together. You sign it. We send it off to the seller. If I bring that offer to you and you go, they're crazy, they want that much money or they want those terms or whatever it may be, you go, okay, no problem. We're just going to go look for another house. Now, I do say 90% of the time because there are those one-offs where maybe it's a discount broker that isn't giving me any communication, so I have no idea what the sellers want. Or maybe I just can't get good communication with the seller's agent, or they just don't want to tell me anything about their clients. So in those cases, I'm always just going to say, hey, if you love this house, put in the best offer that you can, and kind of put in the offer that it's like, if you were to lose it by $1,000, you're going to go, that's fine. They were willing to overpay for the property and I wasn't.
Okay.
So kind of just always thinking, especially in this market, putting your best foot forward. We're not really in the market where we can say, oh, let's try this and then hope that the sellers are going to give us a second chance. It's just not going to happen. So that's kind of my negotiating style. Any questions on that?
That makes sense.
Okay. Now this is a guide to strengthening your offer. I'm not going to go into too much detail on this because I feel like it's so house specific. But you have a lot of really good things going for you. You guys are first time home buyers. So you don't have to worry about selling a house. You've got a good down payment. You've got great credit. You're in a good price range to be shopping in. So, we're going to make sure that we're talking a lot about some of those things. Some of the extras, if you'd like, and I'm not going to make you do this, but I have won situations where there was more than one offer on the table and we wrote a letter to the sellers. So this little family and this little family here both wrote letters to the sellers where there was more than one offer on the table. They were not the highest offer, but the seller liked them the best, so they ended up picking their offer.
Oh,
I can't really take too much credit for that because they wrote the letters. And these are very long. You don't need to make them this long. If I kind of joke that this is a good opportunity to plagiarize your couple of maybe 2 or 3 paragraphs max. And I do think it's really important to put like a photo of you and your family in there.
okay.
But like I said, it's good to kind of just have a rough draft of that so that then if we go find a house the first day and we're in a really tight situation where we've got to get an offer in quick, you're not scrambling to try to write the letter and scrambling to try to go through the contract and have all these extra things. It's like, oh, here's my letter. Oh, here's my pre-approval. We've already got all that stuff going. So
I just read something recently from the multiple listing that they're frowning upon people writing letters to the sellers. They said it's a form of discrimination.
Yep.
I wonder if you read anything about that recently.
Yeah, I've actually had sellers agents respond, and that's totally fine. Like, I totally get that. We don't want people to think that we're discriminating or anything like that. And I have actually received emails from sellers agents that lets me know that they're not going to present the letter with the offer. So yeah, that's totally 100% within their rights to do that. I'm still doing them because we haven't been told.
Personal choice, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
On the flip side of that as well, I just wrote 2 offers in Bountiful where they asked for a personal letter.
Yep, and that's been my experience too, Spencer, is more often than not, I feel like they're asking me for a letter because they're trying to, I mean, they're
So they can discriminate against the other buyers. I mean,
yeah, totally. But I mean, sometimes these offers are so close, it's dollars and pennies, and they're like, I want to pick the best person for my neighborhood. Like, who do I think is going to fit in the best? Who do I think is going to contribute? That kind of thing.
especially in
yeah.
Bountiful.
Especially in Bountiful. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's totally at your discretion. I don't think, and this is just me, I'm not a broker or like any kind of legal counsel or anything like that. I don't think it's a bad thing for you to send one in. Just realize it may not get presented, and that's okay. Okay, so home buying costs. So this kind of goes over, a lot of us agents, Hannah, are going to just wait till these things come up and go, oh, by the way, you get to pay for that. Oh, by the way, I like to give you all this information up front so there's no surprises. So you've got your down payment, which we already talked about. There's also closing costs with your lender. And those are a variety of things. So there's actual costs for the lender to give you the loan. That's part of it. Another part of it is your prepaid. So you'll have to pay a portion of your homeowner's insurance and the property taxes up front. Just depending on when you close will determine that amount. So that when we say closing costs, it's generally going to be between 2 and 3% of the purchase price. That's a good number to kind of plan on. So like when you were saying you had about the $20,000, you guys should be in a pretty good position there. Your earnest money is a good faith deposit that lets the sellers know that you're serious about purchasing the home. Keep in mind that's going to go towards the down payment or towards the closing costs. It's not like additional money. Generally, it's going to be about 1% of the purchase price, but I have seen them go a little bit higher, and we'll talk about that here in just a minute. We're talking about deadlines. You also have a cost for a home inspection. So depending on where you guys are looking, the type of home, generally I say plan on between about $300 to $500. But if it's an older home and maybe has some extra issues that you're concerned with, I have seen buyers spend up to $700, maybe $800 on home inspections.
Okay.
And like I said, once we find the house and once we start talking a little bit more about exactly what you're looking for, I'll kind of prep you a little bit more on what you should be expecting there. But general, between $300 and $500 should be okay. Home inspection is a hard cost. So say you do your inspection and the inspector says, oh, it's got a cracked foundation, and you're like, no way, I'm not buying this house. Well, we still got to pay the inspector for his time, still did his job, right? That's kind of the same deal with the appraisal. So the appraisal is usually going to be between $500 and $700. I have seen those going up a lot lately just because of COVID and that there's just not as many appraisers out there as we need. So I would say your husband will know, and maybe he's getting a discount with his work, but plan on between $500 to $700 for the appraisal.
Okay.
And then this last one, our VIP buyer program, this is kind of like a transaction fee. What it does is it helps us do some extra marketing for you. So say we're not finding the house that you want. It helps get us access to those expired listings, meaning the listings that went on the market and never sold. Gets us access to the for sale by owner properties and any pre-listed properties. So things that aren't, basically in a nutshell, anything that's not showing up on the internet that you would already see. It's also going to pay
I
our,
paid the $300 beforehand.
sorry, what?
So I would pay that $300 beforehand. Like if things weren't working out, I pay for it before we find the house that I like.
Nope, you're going to pay that at the very end of the transaction. So if for whatever reason you end up not buying a house with us or you buy one with somebody else, we don't charge that to you. It's just at the very end of the transaction. So it's not a hard cost like the home inspection or the appraisal.
Okay.
It's also going to help pay for our administrative staff and just all the things that our team does for you. And then, like I said, yeah, you'll only pay this cost if the transaction closes. So any questions on any of those costs?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with any of that VIP. I've never heard of that before. Is that just something your team does?
Yeah, so if you're wanting to pay a transaction coordinator, that is how we bring it up. So it's literally like our transaction fee. So if you're paying like Corey in the office, I think is his transaction fee still $300?
It's $350 for listings and $300 I think for buyers, or $325,
buyers,
something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically that's
So-
just your transaction coordinator
Yep.
then.
Yep, just
Okay.
to pay the transaction coordinator. And it's not something you have to charge, but it's something that our team does. And
If you-
honestly, if anybody gives me pushback on that, we just say, never mind, we'll just waive that for you. And we waive
Okay.
it for all of our military clients too.
Question
okay.
for you, Liz. And from
Yeah.
my understanding, if you are charging a transaction fee, are you putting in that as an addendum to the buyer broker agreement?
Yes.
So it's just an addendum that you guys have on your buyer broker?
We actually have an addendum that goes over all of these home buyer costs and the VIP buyer it's basically so that we get that transaction fee is paid for.
So you have it delineated the hard costs of you're going to have to pay for an appraisal and home inspection and this VIP buyer program transaction
Yep.
coordinator cost as a $300 line item.
Yep.
So is that just your business addendum, or is that something that we actually have access to?
I will send you guys ours. I don't think ours is really necessarily an official form, but Broker Dave takes it. Like for us to charge that transaction fee, we do have to have something in writing. And ours
Yeah,
is
that'd be
just
great.
yeah, ours is just a document. If
Okay.
you guys want to, here, let me give you my email really quick. And anybody who wants, and I'll send you my whole buyer packet. Basically at the end, I'll send you. So what I'll do is I'll send you an email that shows my, my like template that I send out that has all the homework, has my buyer guide, and then I'll also include all the paperwork that we send with it. So my email is easy. It's just liz@burnsideteam.com. So Burnside's right here.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, you just send me that email, then I will remember to send you anything that you want. Okay, so important contract deadlines. So this is the part where I'm going to explain in a little bit more detail, kind of expectations. So Hannah, I'm going to walk you through kind of what typical contract deadlines are like, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's different right now, what we're seeing in the market that's more competitive. So first off, we find the house, you're super excited, we write the offer, we get it accepted, we're super excited, and then we kind of start going through some of these deadlines. And one thing I always like to prepare you for is the beginning of a real estate transaction always feels like a lot more is happening than the end. Like those first 2, maybe 3 weeks, it's a lot of stuff going on. And then almost always near the end, that's when people go, should I be doing something? Am I missing something? Because it just kind of quiets down and there might be a couple of things with our lender and then we're going to the signing table.
Okay.
Real estate also is a lot of hurry up and wait. So there's going to be times where we go, hurry, 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 give me this, do this, do this. And then you wait. And hurry, hurry, hurry. And then you do this and you wait. So that is a normal feeling to feel that way. So once we go under contract, usually within about 3 to 5 days after the contract is signed, we're going to get seller's disclosures. And typically that's like a 6 or 7 page document. It just kind of outlines all of the defects or issues that the seller has had, any big repairs that they've done. And I always like to say, this is a tool. It's not like the Bible or anything like that. Because I don't know about you, I can't remember what happened in my house last week, let alone if I'd been living in a house for 10 years, like I'm probably going to forget stuff on there. So keep in mind, like more than likely the main stuff is the big stuff's going to be on there, but they may miss if they, had to replace something on their HVAC or something like that. So it's just a tool for us to kind of use for the home inspection. And then after that, you've got your due diligence deadline. Typically that's going to be about 10 to 14 days. And that's the time that we're going to order the home inspection. If you want to check out schools or churches or anything like that, that it pertains to the house or the neighborhood, that's going to be kind of your time to check those things out and make sure it all works.
Okay.
After that, you've got your finance and appraisal deadline. And that's usually about 14 to 21 days after the contract is signed. This is kind of like your drop dead date. That's when your earnest money actually goes non-refundable. So I forgot to mention that earlier, is with your earnest money, it is refundable up into a certain point of the contract. And typically it's all going to go non-refundable at that finance and appraisal deadline. So you've really got like 2 or 3 weeks to really make sure it's the house that you want.
Okay.
After that, you have your settlement deadline, and that's usually within about 21 to 30 days of closing. Or of signing the contract, sorry. So that's kind of like your normal outline. A couple of things that we're seeing that are a little bit different with how competitive the market is. Seller's disclosures, usually we are still getting that in the same amount of time. Our due diligence deadline, though, tends to be shortened to maybe 7 or even sometimes we can get 10 days, depending on the age of the home and that kind of thing. And so generally, like I said, those first few days of us going under contract, there's going to be a lot of stuff that we'll have you do. So you're going to have to be signing documents with your lender. You're going to be picking out who your home inspector is, which we have some people that we recommend. So you don't have to necessarily go, find somebody. We'll give you some good recommendations. But you'll want to get that scheduled right away so that then if there's any additional tests that you're doing that take time, you have that extra time to get the test back. Also keeping in mind, home inspectors know a little bit about a lot of things. And so sometimes they may call out things with plumbing, or they may call out things with the electrical or the HVAC system. And they're going to say, hey, you're going to need to get an expert to come in here and tell you what the specific problem is. All I can see is that it's leaking, or whatever it may be. And so we always want to get those inspections scheduled and done right away, so that number one, if there's something major in the house, we can move on with our lives. And number two, if we need extra people to come out and check things, that we've got the extra time within our deadlines to do so.
Okay.
In addition to that, usually all of the earnest money is going to go non-refundable, like I said, in that 2 to 3 week deadline after the finance and appraisal. Sometimes in order to be more competitive, we're going to go in and say, hey, Mr. Seller, we're so serious about buying this house that we're going to let X amount of our earnest money go non-refundable at that due diligence deadline. So what that does is it still allows you to do a home inspection on the house, right? And then once that deadline is passed, you've already done your home inspection, you know the house itself is good, then part of that earnest money goes non-refundable to the seller. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, rather than it going like non-refundable at finance and appraisal deadline, we move it up.
Yep.
Okay.
And we only do that when we're feeling really confident about your financing and that the house is going to appraise for what we're offering for it.
Okay.
So that's kind of one of the main things. Like I said, shortened due diligence deadline, maybe there's some non-refundable at that point. Finance and appraisal deadlines, most lenders don't really have the capacity to move those up to anything shorter from what I've seen. We're usually keeping those the same, and same with settlement deadlines.
With that money that turns like hard after the due diligence or whatever, is the only kind of advantage to, is that just kind of strengthen your offer to kind of?
Yeah, lets the
Guaranteed
sellers know you're
value.
serious, kind of put some more skin
Okay.
in the game.
Okay, gotcha.
It
Yeah,
wins
this-
a lot of offers, especially when you're in that first time home buyer price range that nobody has money in. You know, if you're below like the 250, 300 mark, it can really do a lot for you.
Have you written any offers with earnest money hard at acceptance?
Yes. So you can also do some earnest money non-refundable upon acceptance. I think that does a couple of things. Number one, make sure your buyer's pretty solid. It's gonna have to be a pretty major issue for them to walk away from maybe, you know, $1,000 or something like that. I've never done a ton. It's usually been kind of my first time home buyers and they're just doing anything they can to try to get the offer accepted. So it makes your job a little bit easier when repairs come up. They usually aren't gonna ask for a whole lot. And then it lets the sellers know, hey, they've already got skin in the game right from the get-go. Like these guys are serious buyers.
Yeah, I've done that recently. I think Hannah's done that as well.
Yeah.
You know, $500 or something like that upon.
Yeah,
signing.
I think I've gotten away with $500 most of the time because it was like below 300,000, you know, so first time home buyer. But I mean, Rich Varga just told me that he lost an offer where he did $2,500 earnest money at acceptance, $2,500 earnest money at due diligence, and I think $15,000 over asking price. So it's not foolproof, but it helps.
Yeah, I've suggested it to my buyers, and most of them are like, "Oh hell no, I'm not comfortable with that." But
Yeah. And that's how I always bring it up too, Spencer, is it's like, I just am like, hey, here's a suggestion. It's ultimately going to be up to you, you know? And I usually ask them on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad do you want this house? If they're anything below a 7, I'm like, why are we even writing an offer? But if they're like in the 9, 10 plus range, then I'm like, hey, here's everything that I would do. And then I let them decide. And then I always I think you missed this part, but I always just say, you know, anything that, just put everything on the table. Because it's like, if you walk away and go, gosh, we should have done that $1,000 non-refundable at acceptance, or we should have done this, or we should have done that. Just do everything that you think you should do. And then if you don't get it, at least you know you put in the best offer that you could.
Yeah, find some different buyers that are more motivated.
Yeah, exactly. And how do you do that, Shane?
Keep calling. Keep on
Yeah,
calling.
you keep going, people. Okay, so next up, this is I talked to him about the Keller Williams app. So Hannah, where have you been looking at homes online? Where have you been looking online for homes?
Oh, I usually use like Zillow is usually my go-to.
Okay. Yeah, and Zillow has gotten a lot more accurate. I remember when I was first in real estate, gosh, there was not an accurate listing on Zillow. Have you ever done the thing where you're looking at a property and you're trying to get more information and you accidentally hit a button and then like 10 realtors are calling you?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah. Yep, I've done that too. So to prevent that, I just say the best thing to do is stay off Zillow. I'm going to send you my mobile app that has all of the same information as Zillow. And actually, a lot of my clients like it even better. I'm not sure if Zillow has this, but ours actually has a locator. So if you're ever out in a neighborhood driving around and you see a house that you like with a sign in the yard, you can actually pull up the listing on my app. You can see all the pictures, the price, the square footage, bedroom, bathrooms, all that good stuff, and you can send it right to me.
Oh, cool.
So I'll send you
Okay.
that. And then also at the end of our call, I'm going to go through and set up some searches for you. So you'll actually get all the listings automatically. But that's another one because some people like the format of the app a little bit better.
Okay.
Then I'd go through some of my frequently asked questions, and I'll go through these with you really quick too. Can you help me find new construction homes? Yes, this is where my handy little VIP pass comes in. Because I just tell them, hey, if you ever want to just look at new construction, a lot of the times this is what happens. Buyers are out driving around at open houses on a Saturday, or they're just out driving around in an area and they see a sign for new construction. They go, oh, let's go check it out. And then they go in, they start talking to the buyers or the builder's agent. Before they know it, they're like picking out selections and they don't have any of their own representation. A builder's agent is supposed to ask you if you have somebody that's representing you, and most of them are pretty good. They realize that a lot of their business comes from us that are out working the field. But you can always just take this little VIP pass, or even better, if you're going to go into a model, just give me a quick call or shoot me a quick text. I'll call the agent for you and just say, hey, Hannah and Justin are coming in today and they want to see, this price range. This is kind of their time frame, that kind of thing.
Okay.
For sell by owners, we can definitely work with those. If you ever see a property that's, maybe listed on KSL, or you see a sign in the yard that's for sell by owner, just go ahead and send me the contact information of that seller first. I find that if I just call them first and just kind of talk to them a little bit about you, they feel more like, hey, I'm actually bringing them a buyer. Even when I've worked with situations where my client calls and says, hey, my agent's going to call you, it's like I suddenly did nothing. And it's a little bit harder to get them to just pay the commission to me directly like a seller usually would. When I make that first introductory call, it's usually really easy. That's what you're paying me for, right?
Yeah.
And you're not actually paying me, the sellers are, so that's fine. And then how will you tell me about the newest homes available? Like I said, I'm going to set you up on some of those automated searches. So we'll be able to go through and you'll just get an email anytime something new fits your criteria. And the expectation there is like, I know you can open up an email and I know you can tell me when you like something. I don't necessarily spend so much time looking at those emails that I send you. If I hear something off market or maybe something that's just outside our search parameters or something like that, those are the listings that I'm going to be telling you about. So when you see something you like, just send it to me, send me the MLS number, the address right away. And I mean, honestly, getting out to it as fast as we possibly can once I have that showing assistant is going to be the best thing that we can do. So anytime you see something you love, like it's at least a 7 on your scale of 1 to 10, send it to me right away. If it's something you just kind of like, oh, that might be cool to see, you can probably just kind of create a list of those. And then when we're going out to see some of the other ones you really love, we can kind of add some of those in too.
Okay.
Can we go back through the home again once an offer is made, but before possession? Yes, absolutely. And I like to bring this up because sometimes the market's going to push you to make a decision really fast. And I never want you to feel like I'm the one pushing you to make a fast decision. The market right now is moving so incredibly fast that sometimes we will go look at a house at 4 o'clock and we have to make an offer by 5 o'clock, or we get no chance to make an offer. And that is very fast, even in real estate land. And so sometimes, you may have gone through the house so fast, or there was other people looking at the same time, that you wake up the next day after we get the offer accepted and you're like, I don't even remember what the backyard looked like. I don't even remember what color the bathroom was. Did that one have a tub or a shower? So just know that before you start spending money on inspections or anything like that, we can always go back through the home again. And I know sometimes, especially with first-time home buyers, they have other people that they'd like to take through the home and kind of get their blessing because they've never done this before. Do you guys have anybody like that you plan on kind of getting their words of encouragement?
Yeah, I think my dad usually likes to put his 2 cents in, and it usually steers me in one direction. So
okay. And do you think is he going to have like an actual say in which house you buy, or is it more or less like you just like to kind of get his blessing once you make a decision?
I kind of like to get his blessing once I make a decision.
Okay, perfect. So in that case, then what I would recommend is we'll go out and find the house. And then once we get something under contract before you start spending money, we'll get dad to come back out and look at it.
Perfect.
Now, if she would have said the opposite, that like she's not making a decision without her dad seeing it, I'm going to require her dad to come on every single showing.
Your dad
Um,
probably doesn't know anything about real estate. Just
Yeah, her
saying.
dad doesn't know anything.
Real
Exactly.
paperwork, that guy.
Once my offer is accepted, what should I do? This is, like I said, we kind of give you those step-by-step increments. So once the offer is accepted, we'll collect your earnest money, and then we'll have you set up your home inspection. And then we, every time something new happens, we give you that next step, and the next step, and the next step. So we have covered a lot of information. Hannah, is there any other questions that have come up for you since we've been chatting?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yep.
It is
think
2
it's like-
o'clock, so if anybody needs to leave right at 2, I totally understand. I kind of mentioned this in team meeting. I don't know if you guys saw, but I plan on kind of going a little bit over today. Did anybody else have any questions that they kind of had pop up for them, or they would think a buyer would maybe ask during that they wanted to go through?
I'm curious about kind of more your scripts on how you handle the people that are like, well, why should I go with you instead of like Homey, or, you know, kind of those cheap ways, get money back, broke rebate programs. How do you handle that, or what's your script for that?
So I have actually never had somebody tell me they were going to go with Homey over me.
Oh, really?
So I don't really
Well,
have
great.
one for it, luckily. But I think that really with my buyer consultation, and I haven't even actually finished everything that I've done to provide them value, but I think I don't typically get an objection like that. Sometimes it's like they may have another realtor that they're interviewing, and that's perfectly fine. And so typically what I'll do in that situation is, and I do it with them right there, is I go, oh, okay, so you're thinking of hiring Shane from KW. Wow, I've actually worked with him. He is a really good agent. Would you be interested to know would you be interested to know how, sorry, did you lose me?
No, it's getting crap.
Okay. But I just tell them like, oh, you know, I've heard great things about him, or, oh, I've never worked with him, whatever it may be. And I go, would you be interested to know kind of how we measure up and how we do business compared to each other? And a lot of the times they're like, yeah, I would. And so I just pull up the MLS right then and there, and I show them how many houses they sell versus how many houses I sell. And most of the time I sell a lot more. So they're like, oh, okay, she obviously knows what she's doing.
So if you're a newbie, you're kind of can't really do that though.
Yeah, but you could bring up, like, say if you're on a team or your partner or our brokerage, you know, some of
Right.
those things that we get, like I think next team meeting they'll have lore. So the language of real estate, and it'll go through like how our office outperforms everybody. So you can use some of those office stats too.
Great. Okay.
There's
Perfect.
one that we talked about on Witsy that with Broker Dave about being a new agent, what you can bring to the table is you can just say, you know, those other agents, they are so busy. They can't be one-on-one with you like I can. You know, I have all my time to devote just to you. Or like, I have this passion and fire of being brand new. I'm so excited to get into this that I'll bring that, you know, to my work.
Totally. And I think also when you're working with a referral, they already know that you've done something else, and they already know that you've got that passion and that fire for something else. And so they just kind of believe that you're going to bring that same fire to the table when you're working, and just kind of explaining to them again, like leaning on our brokerage, that we've got great systems, tools, and training, that it's like, anytime I don't know something, I'm not going to be afraid to tell you I don't know, and I will go get you the answer.
Can I have your email again, please?
Yeah, it's liz@burnsideteam.com.
Is it Liz, L-I-S or
Nope,
L-I-Z?
L-I-Z.
L-I-Z. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so do you guys want to now have me go into kind of how I go through the needs and wants and searches? I'm going to do like kind of a quick version of it.
I would.
Okay, so Hannah, I know I gave you that homework. Are you still there? I can't see you. She doesn't have a great internet connection. Let's see if she comes back, and I'm going to start sharing my screen with you to the next thing. Are you there, Hannah?
Yeah, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so real quick, try to give it to me as fast as you can. you know that homework I told you about, your 5 must-haves and your 5 like-to-haves?
Yeah.
So tell me what those are.
So my must-haves are I need at least a 3-bedroom and I need at least 2 full bathrooms. I need at least a 1-car garage and I need a living room that's on the same floor as the kitchen.
Okay,
Like I can see into the same room.
perfect. And so what I'm going to do is anytime she's asking me, she's telling me about each of these things that she needs, I'm going to find out why. So it's only her and her husband right now. So she needs 3 bedrooms. Oh, great. What do you need those? What are the extra 2 bedrooms for? Okay, perfect. And then you said you need 2 full bathrooms. Tell me more about that. Because sometimes you find out they just need 2 toilets and they don't actually need 2 showers or 2 bathtubs. And then, you know, she mentioned she needs a 1-car garage. Okay, perfect. Do you guys just have 1 vehicle? Is there something special you're doing in the garage? And what was your last one?
I need a living room,
Oh, the
room
li-
that's on the same floor that looks into the kitchen.
okay, so tell me more about that.
So when I plan, well, one, I already like to have, when I have people over, I like to be in the same room with the kitchen. I'm always cooking while everyone's in the living room hanging out. But when we have our child, I want to be able to watch the child while I'm cooking because they're going to be in the living room playing with toys.
Cool. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. That's exactly why I like the layout of my house too. So see how I'm just kind of like, anytime they're asking me something, just so that they know that I'm really listening to them and that I actually am understanding what it is that they want. Because sometimes people will tell me that they want where like the living room and the kitchen, they can see it. And it's like maybe a multi-level would work just fine for them because all they're meaning is they literally just want to be able to see into the other room. So it's like, you know, it can't have a wall and maybe it doesn't necessarily have to be right on that same level, but as long as she can see down into what her kids are doing type thing. Sorry, I got to put on my verification code. I don't know why we're like suddenly so need all these verifications to get into the MLS, but okay. And then tell me more about kind of some of your dreams. What are some of your like to haves or things that if we just hit these, it would be just so awesome?
We want at least 1.
Sorry, what did you say?
I said we would like to have a 2-car garage, even though we only need 1. We'd like to have 2.
Okay.
Also like to have the backyard being like finished that has grass in it.
Okay.
And I
And
think
that,
those
and I'm
were
assuming is that for just the dog or entertaining?
kind of both, kid, dog, either way.
Okay. So that'd be ideal, not necessary, but it would be great if it already had a finished backyard and a fence and all that good stuff.
Yep.
Okay. Any other like to haves you can think of?
We'd like to have an updated kitchen, but if we can't find one, then it's not gonna be a deal breaker for us.
Okay, cool. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, here's a couple of things I do on the MLS to kind of show people what's in their price range. So are you only looking for single family homes or are you open to townhomes, condos, that kind of thing?
I don't want to have any shared neighbors like with sharing my house.
Okay.
I'm done with apartment style living.
Gotcha. And what areas are you looking in?
Well, I'd really like to be on the east side of Bountiful,
East side of
but
Bountiful?
I'll be kind of close to Davis County is fine.
Okay. So are you looking anywhere in Salt Lake at all or just mostly Bountiful, kind of Davis County area?
I was looking mainly Bountiful, Davis County, just because I know aren't taxes higher in Salt Lake?
You know, to tell you the honest truth, I think they're pretty similar between Bountiful and Salt Lake. I don't think there's a huge difference, but I could be wrong.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think you're wrong.
If they're
Is it really cheaper
Yeah.
in Bountiful?
Yeah, Davis County is a little bit cheaper. Utah County used to be cheaper than Salt Lake County, but they decided to raise their taxes up 60%. So those guys are.
Yeah,
idiots.
and I know there's areas in Utah County that are like ridiculously expensive for taxes. So I didn't know that about Davis County. So I'm learning something new. Great.
That's free. That's free.
Thanks. So we're looking kind of east of the freeway, and are we looking in North Salt Lake at all? So we kind of like where my little hand is this kind of what we're looking at? Can you see that, Hannah? Are you
You see
there?
me?
I can hear you now.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, yes, that was perfect where I want to be at.
Okay. So then I'm going to draw them a little map. Now, sometimes, like if I've already gotten wind that they are going to be looking in a very specific area like this, I'll have them actually draw on Google Maps and send it to me before we meet. So that's kind of one of my little homework prep questions that I'd have before, is if there's like a specific school or something like that that they're trying to be in. So we've drawn on the map and we can see right there, there's 8 listings. And all I've done is this, the 450,000, so they're max, and it's a single family home in that area. Now what I'll do is I'll kind of play with some of the other criteria she's told me. So we're going to do the 3 bedrooms. And I always tell them, hey, watch this little number here at the top. So we've still got 8 matches. If I put in 2 bathrooms, we only lost 1, which is awesome. Now, if I put in the garage, the 1-car garage, we get it down to 5. If we put in a 2-car garage, we get it down to 4. So do you want to stick with the 1-car garage?
Yeah, because that's just a need. If it has the 2-car, then cool.
Okay. And sometimes what I'll find too is I kind of open up the conversation around garage, especially when there's a bigger significance. Like if I go from like 20 properties down to 10 by putting in a 1-car garage, I kind of talk to them more about what the specific need is for the garage, if they could deal with a carport, if they could build a garage later, that kind of thing. In this situation where we're only losing a couple, I'm going to let them have their 1-car garage, and maybe it's something they change later. And then, so that's pretty much it. And then what I would do from this point is I'm going to view the results. I'm going to set up an automated search for them. And when there's a few, like when there's less than 10 like this, I'm going to actually go through every single house with them. And I always make jokes. I'm like, hey, tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like. Remember, none of these are my house. I'm not going to be offended. We can make jokes. You know, we can say how we love this and hate that. And we just kind of go through, because then I'm going to get a really clear idea of like, because maybe Hannah's idea of an updated kitchen is like a kitchen from the early 2000s. Whereas when I'm thinking an updated kitchen is like this super cool, modern, open concept thing. And so it's really important to try to not give your own opinions on things. Now, if you see something crazy like some shag carpet or whatever, you know, carpet in a bathroom that you guys want to laugh about, like, you know, do that kind of thing. But it's really important to try not to say too much when you're kind of going through and getting their opinions on what they like and what they don't like and what's too outdated and what's, you know, in good enough shape for them.
Yeah, because I prefer carpet in my bathrooms.
Yeah, perfect. See, and maybe she did. And I'm laughing and making fun of carpet in the bathrooms. My mom is literally one of those weirdos that wants carpet in her bathroom. So you just never know.
If you hit that create listing alert, it'll just alert you to anything that comes up with these same search terms.
Yeah, so if you go create listing alert, so we'll put this in, and then you would add a new client. So you're going to put in their information here, and then it's going to send them an email. And this is the one thing I always bring up too, is I say, once you get that email, make sure you accept the invitation that it's going to send you. It's really simple. You go in and create a password, and then it'll accept it. If you don't do that, you're not going to get any of the listings I send you. And then there's 3 different ways you can get it. So the express alert makes it so that anytime something new fits the criteria, it sends them an email. A daily alert is going to send them a list of anything that fits their list, fits their criteria that day, so they get a lot more repeats. And then weekly alert is the same thing, but only once a week. For the most part, I'm going to use express alerts.
Do you ever have clients that you work with that are like, oh, but I want the carpet done before or anything? Do you ever negotiate with that, or is there a way to do that anyway?
Like they want their carpet replaced before they buy it, or what do you mean?
Yeah, I guess that. I mean, is that something that obviously it's not something that they want the seller to do, but is there, I guess they just have to purchase it and then wait another week or whatever and have that done?
Yeah, because you have to always, before you start making any changes to the property, they need to actually own it and have possession.
Right.
And the reason for that is it's like, what if something falls apart and say the seller can't sell you the home, which is rare, or say your loan doesn't, you just spent $5,000 on new carpet in this house. You don't want to do that either. So you just want to make sure that the house is totally yours before you start spending money.
Right.
Um,
Well, if there was a need of, okay, they need $15,000 for these repairs or things for the week after and everything, is there a way to make an addendum so they get money to go to a contractor to do that? Or because you
It's
can't really pay that
tricky.
back, right?
Yeah, it's tricky. And what I'd recommend is whoever the lender is, ask
Right.
them exactly how they want that to show up on an addendum, because some of them will let you do stuff like that still and some of them won't. Ideally, you're going to be getting credits towards their closing costs. So then
Right.
they can keep that cash on hand and go do whatever they want with it. That's like the perfect scenario. Like whenever I'm negotiating repairs, I always prep my buyer, like, we're going to ask for a credit because A, you don't want somebody who's just moving out of a house to do these repairs because you're going to hire the cheapest Joe or Sam out there. And then B, you get to choose who actually does all of the work. So you know it's done to your standards. And then we are just going to do it in the form of a credit towards your closing costs so that, again, you get to pick. And if you end up deciding to add on some extras or whatever, you have the ability to do that after closing.
And so does that credit with closing costs kind of in an addendum, or is it just something you
Yeah.
work with the mortgage person?
Yeah, it's in an addendum.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. So we did the searches, and then as far as paperwork goes, my script is really simple. I go, how do you feel about everything? And they go, great. And I go, great. Here's the paperwork I'm going to send you to sign. That's pretty much all I do. I don't really do anything special. Or if I'm in person, then I just pull out the paperwork and we start going through it. I like to start with like so I do the exclusive buyer broker agreement last so that I can kind of warm them up for signature. So the first thing I have them sign is that home buying costs, where it talks about our transaction fee. So I kind of review and go, okay, here's all the fees that we talked about. So they sign that. And usually I like to have them sign that first, because if there's any apprehension about them signing documents, it's going to come up right there. So they'll usually say something like, so what does this mean? Does this mean that I'm tied to working with you? Or does this mean I have to pay all these fees? Or, you know what I mean? It's a good indicator of like, are we on the right track? And if they just go, yep, and they just sign it, then it's usually pretty smooth sailing from there. I also have them.
What kind of pushback are you going to get on that form, and how do you kind of overcome a little bit of it? I mean, 95% of people probably just sign it and not worry about it, but those 5%, I'm just curious on
usually because I've done such an extensive consultation with them and built so much value that usually at the end they're like, yep, and they're just signing, and it's not anything hard. I always feel like it was something that I did, or sometimes it's a highly analytical person who really does actually need to take the time to think about it. And so in that case, I'm just going to explain all the paperwork to them right there, and I'm going to send it to them, or let them take them with it. Let them take it with them. And then usually I kind of bring up like the dating analogy is, you know, sometimes they're like, oh, well, I just don't know. Like, I really want to, you know, kind of look at a few houses, or I need to interview my Aunt Sally or whatever first. And so I always just say, hey, you know, because you're such a great client, you came from this great referral source. Like, what I'll do is I'll do like a dating day, and I'll call it that with you. And so, you know, we'll go look at a few houses, like 2 or 3 in a day. And, you know, I'll kind of show you a little bit more about what I do when I'm out in the field. And then at that point, if you're feeling comfortable about working with me, then we'll go ahead and sign the documents then. If not, then let's address that. Let's talk about what I could do to be better for you, or maybe it's just not a good fit. That's okay too. I have a lot of great agents I'd be happy to refer you to. And that's more often than not. So like if I have a sign call, but the thing is with sign calls, because I know that was a little bit different. So somebody who's not a referral, right? Whether this is a Zillow lead or a sign call, or however you're getting leads for your business, a website. I mean, I feel like for them to meet with you, generally you've built a decent enough rapport that they're going to come in and meet with you. That usually it's pretty similar. But I know that for sure, like when I'm meeting with a referral that's from Cameron's SOI or my SOI, it's literally like sign the paperwork and it's not even a question. So it is a little bit easier. Like I said, I think if you really prepare them for the buyer consultation, you do all that upfront work, you know, you're spending probably 2 or 3 hours with this person before you're even opening a door. Generally, they're going to feel like, okay, they know what they're doing, and they're going to sign the paperwork. But if you have any, like, I don't know if there's any specifics you want to go over.
Do you give them an idea of how long this presentation is going to last when you make the
Yeah,
appointment?
so when I set the appointment, I let them know it's going to be at least an hour, and then it might go an hour and a half depending on how many questions they have.
Okay.
So if it's not a first-time home buyer, I generally go through that presentation way faster. I'm just kind of doing a review. I'm usually asking them, when was the last time you bought a house? How did it go? Things like that. So then I just kind of know the things that I need to retrain them on. Because it's like if they already bought a house with an agent before and they're not using them, obviously something didn't go perfect. And so I want to just kind of see how the experience was and ask a lot of questions about it. And then, like I said, kind of retrain them, reset expectations, and then we're just going to more or less focus on what the house is. And then after we sign all the paperwork, I'm going to have us both pull out our calendars and set up a time for our first showings. And I just say, hey, my schedule, like I told you in the beginning, my schedule does fill up really quickly and I want to make sure that I have time for you. So why don't we do this? Let's set up a time here. And if they still need to pre-qualify, maybe it's in a week. If they're ready to go, so let's set up a time tomorrow or the next day where we can go out and look at some properties. Now, hey, if there's nothing available, we don't need to go searching and trying to find something to look at. If there's nothing available, that's fine. We'll just reset another time. But if there's stuff that you want to see, at least I have that time blocked out for you. And it's just kind of already setting that expectation right up front that you're busy and you want to help them, and that, you know, they need to kind of schedule with you in advance to make sure that you have time for them.
Do you say you only show like 5 houses to a client in a day? Because isn't there a level of where they don't remember which house has which?
Totally. And I always I prep them for that. So in today's market, I'm usually telling, depending on the price point, and if they have a lot in their searches, I'm saying pick out your top 10, because more than likely by the time I'm setting up showings, we're going to get it down to 5 to 7. And usually around 5 to 7 for most people, it's going to be too much and they're going to stop forgetting. I mean, some of my clients that are a little bit older or have bought a lot of houses, like they start forgetting after like 2 or 3 houses. I think that more of your younger first-time home buyers can usually get to about 5 to 7, and then they're like, all right, I'm done. So yeah, and like I said, I always just kind of give them that experience of how it's worked with other people, and you know, we want to try to narrow it down to their top 5 to 7.
Very good.
Anything else?
Awesome.
No, this is great. Thank you so much for the information.
Yeah, you're so welcome. And you're welcome to email me. And anytime you have questions, just let me know. Happy to kind of help walk you through any forms or anything like that that you need help with too.
Yeah, I'll totally be emailing you and asking you to send whatever you will for just examples to kind of look over.
Yep,
So,
absolutely.
I have one question that I talked to some other agents in the office about when I was there a couple weeks ago. So what about sellers who are only offering like 2.5% commission, or like Homey that is 1% commission? How do you handle that? Because you do put in your buyer broker agreement that they are going to pay 3%, right? Do you?
Yes, that is a really good question. And that is something, like, especially on my highly analytical clients that I know are going to read that whole contract, is I say, hey, now look, this, I'm going to fill in that this is a 3% commission. And that is, that is what that's what I've earned throughout this transaction. Now, keep in mind, I'm never going to let my commission get in the way of you getting the house that you want. And I truthfully mean that. I've taken some pretty crappy commissions to make sure that my client got the house that they really wanted. And there's a couple of different ways you can do it. So this is probably not the best way. This is probably not the way Broker Dave would say to do it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the house under contract. And then when I'm going to start giving things to my admin or like my Corey, my transaction coordinator, I call up the listing agent and I go, oh crap, I made a mistake. And they're like, what's wrong? And I go, well, I have a buyer broker agreement signed for a 3%. And I just noticed on the MLS that you're only offering a 2 or a 2.5. And I kind of go, there's 2 different ways I'll go, depending on how good the relationship is with the agent. I go, can I ask, what are you taking on it? And generally, if they're taking a discount already, then they're probably not going to offer me much more. Now, say I've given their sellers $10,000 or $15,000 over the asking price. Well, I've definitely made up the difference in commission that we needed, right? And so I'll say, hey, do you think that your sellers would be willing to sign some escrow commission instructions, because I've clearly gotten them over what they were originally expecting.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, I know that's not really the best way to do it. Broker Dave would want you to kind of get those things in writing up front. And I have done it before where it was a Homey listing that was offering a lot less money. I had my buyers sign a commission agreement and they didn't get the house. Long story short, they ended up firing me. So ever since then, I've never done it before.
Meaning
they
you
got-
were
I
gonna
mean,
ask them to pay it? You were gonna ask the buyer to pay it?
I've never asked a buyer to make it whole. I always ask the seller to.
So I'll give you an example, Liz. I mean, we've been coming across this lately a lot, me and Hannah, and we've actually been able to get all of them approved to 3%, and we kind of use the same scenario you say, is that we, you know, hey, if we give you a squeaky clean offer, you know, I work really hard. I'm a full-time agent. I'm a professional realtor, and you know, can we get an average of 3% or a normal 3% BAC? You know, is that something that your seller's willing to do?
That's a way better way to do it.
Yeah. And so
I
like,
think to ask them right up front, especially when you're giving them a seller offer, is a way better way.
yeah, and I try and use the word like a normal 3% or an average or something like,
Mhm.
this is normal. This is the normal thing. So normally, like I said, they said, yeah, you know, if it is, go ahead and send those escrow instructions over with the offer. And if it looks good and everything, we'll go ahead and sign it all.
Yep.
So like I said, lately we've been batting, you know, 100 out of 100. So
Yay.
we'll see how things go. But yeah, exactly. Won't, you know, commission never gets in the way of a client. We just literally took a huge haircut on one listing we just had, that just to make the deal work, because the appraisal came in
Yeah,
super low.
I took a 1% homie, and it was like with one of the toughest clients ever. And it was seriously a situation where I was so afraid that the client would fire me if I tried to do anything that with escrow instructions, that I was just like, just close the deal and move on. And
Yeah.
I was just like, whatever, it's another number, it's fine. And you know, they gave me a referral, so try to
That's
make up for
funny.
it there.
Yeah, I had the same incidents. They were screaming, yelling at me, cussing, and like calling me names, and I'm on vacation. And then literally when I get back to try and calm things down and say, look, we're going to take a discount. The other agent's going to take a discount. The buyer's going to come up. You guys are going to come down. Like, oh, we trust you. And so,
Yeah.
I don't know.
But
It's
yeah,
just
like
kinda
Shane
funny.
said, it's way better to get the agent and everybody to agree to it up front. And
So what's
like I
the
said,
paperwork for that when you're doing it up front like that?
it's like escrow commission instructions or something like that.
And you send it along with your offer, Shane, if you've already talked to the other agent about it?
Yeah. And I try to get a feel for it, you know, like, hey, would your seller be willing to come up or something like that? And most of the time they say, yeah. Or they might say, no, my seller's a total asshole and he's like at 5% and I'm splitting it with you and this is how it is.
Yeah.
I'll send it over anyways, but like, you know, just hoping that maybe this is the last ditch effort, like a Hail Mary. But like I said, I mean, it's a 0.5%, or sometimes the percent really hurts, but 0.5%, that's kind of been the new norm, unfortunately. But
Yeah, it just makes me so disappointed in the other agents seeing that 2.5% when I'm looking on the MLS.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's why I think it's important to ask them what they're taking, because sometimes they're taking a 3% and they're giving you 2.5.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes they're taking 1 and giving you 2.5. And so I think it's just good to just kind of go at it with curiosity. And it's tough because you
Yeah.
kind of have to ask a lot of questions around it. And they're
Mhm.
I think those are the most uncomfortable questions. Like I can ask people about why they need 2 bathrooms and why they can't look in West Valley all day. But like when it comes to why aren't you paying a full commission, I don't know, it makes me uncomfortable.
And
Yeah.
some agents out there that are representing buyers don't deserve a full 3%, but
But I do, damn it.
yeah, you do.
Any other
Thank
questions?
you. You shared so much good information. Thank you.
Yeah, good luck out there, Ashton. I'm excited to see how you do.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I'm something's gonna happen soon.
Yeah, where do you live?
I live in Grantsville, but I grew up in Bountiful
Oh, cool.
and I lived in Brigham City, so I'm just talking to people from Brigham City to Provo.
Where's Brigham City?
North.
It's north,
Like way north?
Yeah,
like
you're
an hour north of Salt Lake.
Okay, cool.
Like
Well,
Canada.
yeah, everybody email me that wants any of the information. And if you have any other questions, again, it's just liz@burnsideteam.com.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. We'll see you
Thank you
guys.
very much. It was awesome.
Thanks.
Thank
See
you.
guys.
Thanks, Liz.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Hannah.
You're welcome.